Look mate, I know we're friends, but the price is non-negotiable. It's $1 a wipe. Take it or leave it. What? Unless you've been locked down in a doomsday bunker, you'll know that the world is gripped by a new pandemic, an unstoppable strain of panic buying. But this isn't the first time that consumer cattle have been willing to suplex one another for the last budget bundle of bog roll. In times of crisis, human beings often look to the shelves for answers, and maybe we all have something to learn from these previous frenzies. So batten down your hatches, wipe your screen down with some hospital-grade hand sanitizer, and pour yourself a delicious quarantini, because today we're looking at the history of panic buying. Our first case study in consumer calamity takes us to the early 1960s, the era of weird pointy underwear and Cold War paranoia. Instead of doing war properly, the USSR and America were competitively hoarding doomsday devices. And tensions were never higher than the 13 days of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the most consequential dick-measuring contest the world had ever seen. On October 22nd, 1962, the American president and owner of the nation's sharpest haircut, JFK, announced that the Russians were preparing to point missiles at the country from a base in Cuba. This was an unprecedented escalation, provided that you don't count all the American missiles pointed at the USSR that were located in Turkey and Italy. But that was none of our business. JFK did his best to calm the nation's collective anxiety by listing all the places the USSR could now reduce to radioactive ash. The public reacted by calmly storming the supermarkets, filling their homes and makeshift bunkers with non-perishable food, because nothing cures radiation poisoning like tinned peaches. Meanwhile, in Russia, there wasn't a single instance of panic buying, because the Soviets had shrewdly decimated food supplies for the last 40 years. Those sneaky Russians, always a step ahead. In America, city stores were gutted within a few days, because as well as food, people were stocking up on flashlights, batteries, and of course, toilet paper. So what is it about toilet paper that sends people into such an immediate frenzy? Well, there are a lot of arseholes out there, but the answer is more complicated than that. The main reason that people start panic buying bog roll is because it's the first item that looks like it's running out. It is the largest everyday item, and therefore leaves the most conspicuous absence on the shelves. There's never actually a toilet paper shortage, there's a shelf space shortage. But all our little primate hunter-gatherer brains see is an absence, and we start wiping that shit off the shelves for ourselves. So the best thing you can do in situations like this is panic first! The sooner you give in to your anxieties, the bigger your head start will be on all those Johnny Panic latelys. In the 1970s, we get 2 panic purchase sprees for the price of 1, thanks to the world's favourite sticky black sludge, oil. In 1973, Middle Eastern oil-producing countries collectively organised to reduce oil production by 5% every month. They did this in order to pressure oil-consuming countries who were supporting Israel in its occupation of disputed territories. As a result, the price of oil in Western countries shot up faster than a junkie in a Starbucks bathroom, and governments scrambled to save their economies. Meanwhile, ordinary gas guzzlers lost their flipping minds, worried that they wouldn't be able to get enough dinosaur soup to fill up their land boats and make them go fast. Gas stations were soon overwhelmed with hordes of anxious drivers desperate to pump themselves silly. A separate but similar oil crisis followed in 1979, thanks to the Iranian Revolution putting the country's oil fields out of commission. With fresh memories of the first oil crisis, people learned from history and set out to swiftly repeat it. The queues returned, and it wasn't long before gas stations all over America were tapped out. But here's the interesting thing. Gas may have got expensive, but there was always more than enough to go round. The only reason the pumps ran out was because of the huge surge in demand. What's worse is that these 1970s cars would guzzle down about half a gallon of oil every hour while idling. So an estimated 150,000 barrels of ground goo were wasted every day that these queues lasted. In all panics, there is rarely actually a shortage of the coveted commodity. Smarter people than me might call this self-fulfilling prophecy, but I like to call it the self-eating snake of stupidity, TM. It begins with a media event that sparks the first initial wave of panic buying. The media then report on this panic, which in turn leads to more panic. This pattern continues until there is a genuine shortage and we're all left eating our own snake butts. In many ways, this is a rational response to the irrationality of crowds. So if you can't get there early, get there heavy. There's a lot of crazy people out there, and you don't know what they're capable of. Panic buying isn't always about survival and self-preservation. Sometimes it's about the perfectly human desire for things to never ever change. Because our next panic focuses on the world's second favourite black toxic sludge. Yes, in 1985, the sugar slingers at the Coca-Cola company decided they were bored of selling the world's most successful consumer product and decided to commit the greatest marketing blunder in history. The company had been spooked by Pepsi's growing popularity, as well as their hilariously passive-aggressive marketing campaign. In response, Coca-Cola decided to shake things up and change the recipe of their signature drink. But if you've ever shaken up a can of their toxic tooth rotter before, you'll know they were headed for disaster. After a much hyped rollout, the general public reacted to this new flavour with all the calm and composure we have learnt to expect from them. Coke fiends everywhere started hoarding cans of the classic formula, with some diehards spending thousands of dollars on the stuff in just one day. People who clearly had nothing better to do even organised mass protests and phone-in campaigns, demanding that Coca-Cola make Coke average again. Coca-Cola relented and brought the original formula back after just 80 days, forcing all those Coke hoarders to get high and headachy on their own supply. While this was a relatively minor panic, it demonstrates that people can be sent into an irrational consumer tailspin when something they're used to is threatened. And what's worse... One second. What, you didn't expect me to self-quarantine without the good kush, did ya? As the year 2000 approached, there was a general feeling of apocalyptic ennui. Understandably, as the year was about to have a 2 in front of it for the first time since the year 299. And frankly, I still haven't gotten over it. And it wasn't just humans who were preparing to have a Rain Man-style meltdown over the calendar's 000 makeover. It was also computers. Since the 1960s, computer programmers had been representing the year with 2 digits rather than 4. So when the year 2000 came around, there was concern that some of these computers would simply collapse under the stress of time travelling back to 1900. For 3 years, widespread fear slowly built. People predicted that airplanes would fall out of the sky, that nuclear facilities would suddenly shut down, and that all our Tetris scores would be reset. Once again, this led to a run on the shelves for non-perishable food and, of course, arse paper, as people prepared for the technopocalypse. But Y2K was different. The fear was spread out over a few years, so people had time to lose their minds in a more orderly fashion. And this gave businesses and fringe groups time to exploit all these frantic fry memes made flesh. People sold junk computer safety protocols and extortionate Y2K insurance. And there were even these Y2K survival kits, which sold a wind-up flashlight and instant soup for 50 buckaroos. It was also the survivalists' time to shine. People who are always a little too eager to crap into handheld chemical turlets. Price gouging on normal goods was also rampant, but what people were really worried about was all the regular gouging that would happen once society went all wobbly. Arms manufacturers made the most of this, releasing limited edition Y2K rifles. Gun sales skyrocketed in the lead up to the millennium, and this pattern would repeat itself just 8 years later. 2008 was a time of justified jitters. The American housing market had just made bathroom brownies in its britches and flushed the entire world economy with it. But it was the fresh election of one Barack Hussein Obama that got people's trigger fingers itching and cash machines ka-chinging. Certain media outlets were keen to suggest that Barack Obama was coming for your guns, and this combined with the uncertainty of the financial oopsie-doodle led to an exponential rise in gun sales. This increase in demand led to a civilian ammo shortage which lasted all the way until 2013. And this naturally led to manufacturers deciding to price gouge, sometimes selling the same product for more than double the price. Despite the fact that Obama never came for anyone's guns. I mean, that guy couldn't do shit. He couldn't even close one Cuban torture hotel. Now, I'm with y'all. I think guns are as rad as a barrel-smoked hog in the back of your pickup truck. But their excessive rise in popularity during times of crisis is revealing. It shows that panic buying is all about getting one up on the other guy. Because who needs to hoard butt paper when you can calmly burst your neighbour's head into a haze of pink mist and steal his stockpile? And that brings us up to date to the first ever worldwide panic buying spree. Look at us, covering current events. Who'd have thought? Not me. While panic buying is nearly always sparked by a genuine crisis, there's rarely a reason to do it. It's fueled by hysterical media reporting and the admittedly human instinct to copy the behaviour of crowds. In times of crisis, we should be less worried about what other people are doing and more worried about how other people are doing, specifically those who will be genuinely affected by the crisis at hand. Thanks for watching, and if you like what I've put out so far, consider following me on Twitter and hit the bell so the next ordinary thing can be delivered straight to your face. And check out my Patreon in the link below. Don't even try it, I will end you!